there is a major warning if you hold Bitcoin. So the 30-year Treasury just soared to its highest level since the run-up of the financial crisis. And we can see that the last time that this bond yield spiked to this level, or very close to it, Bitcoin actually ended up rallying and pumped very, very hard shortly after. So a lot of people are panicking right now regarding this 30-year yield. And if you take a look at the stock market, you take a look at the NASDAQ has dumped quite violently today and has already gone down about 12%. So now it's considered correction territory. But if you take a look at Bitcoin and we come to the daily time frame, what's quite interesting is Bitcoin continues to, on every single one of these dips recently, just instantly rips up. It instantly rips up. So Bitcoin is green on the day. It's most likely about to close green on the day while stocks dumped and closed very negative. It's quite interesting what's happening here. And if you also take a look at gold, gold looks like it's starting to bottom, and gold is actually green on the day and has pumped since FOMC today. And let's talk about FOMC, which they did not hike rates today. They ended up leaving rates unchanged for the 5th straight meeting, and there was a 9-3 dissent. So 9 people voted in favor of keeping rates steady. 3 of them voted on hiking rates. And what is quite interesting with this whole situation is Bitcoin is just holding strong here. It's holding very strong here. But I think Bitcoin is about to make a very big move. Personally, what I think is going to happen is I think in the short term, Bitcoin is going to break this resistance at 67K, and there is going to be some type of rally, some type of hated rally, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. And the reason why I think that is because the Crypto Clarity Act is most likely going to be voted on as early as next week. There's a recent update to the Clarity Act, and this recent update, ladies and gentlemen, now allows the favor of the Democrats. So the Democrats were not voting in favor of the Clarity Act for this certain provision within the Clarity Act regarding allowing the president to be involved in cryptos. And they have fixed that ethics provision in a favorable way that Democrats like it and will vote for it. So we have nearly 10 Democrats. They are now in favor of the Clarity Act, and we only need 7 of them. So we have more people than we need to actually get the Clarity Act done. And this Clarity Act is going to, in my opinion, cause a short-term rally, a short-term pump. It's not going to be a buy the rumor, sell the news event because the market's not pricing it in, which is an even more bullish thing. But what the Clarity Act actually does is it brings in trillions of dollars into the market that has never been able to enter through these banks and institutions. And that is going to pump the market immediately when it actually gets into law. But it will certainly take time for that liquidity to truly return into the crypto market, just like the Bitcoin ETFs immediately, obviously very bullish thing for Bitcoin. But it took many months later for the real effect to take place, and then Bitcoin ended up pumping very hard after. So Bitcoin is chopping, and I think the Clarity Act is that next catalyst that can send Bitcoin to break this strong resistance at 67,000. And then we possibly have some de-escalation in the Middle East. As you can see, oil has crashed recently. It recently dumped with the understanding just about 16% that there's going to be some de-escalation in the Middle East with Iran and US. And this is a promising sign. So if oil continues to break down, if there is peace in the Middle East, which there has to be, there's most likely going to be here very soon, that's going to be very good for risk assets. It's going to be good for stocks. But another thing, you have to take a look here. The Korean stock market crashed violently. It's already down 40%. So once this stock market stops crashing, once the NASDAQ stops correcting, I think cryptos are going to set up for some short-term relief rally, some rally, and especially with the Clarity Act could be as early as next Monday a vote. That's what we are getting. And if that happens, that could send Bitcoin up. And I think cryptos would pump very hard for the short term. But ultimately, what I think is going to happen is that there's going to be a short-term rally, maybe to 75K. It could go higher, obviously. But I think we're going to get some type of short-term rally. And then according to the 4-year cycle, there should be a final low. in the fourth quarter. And there's typically a final low in the fourth quarter. And based on the current data, it is likely that the Fed is going to potentially hike rates at least one time this year. But now if we go into the small microstructure of Bitcoin, what's quite interesting is that since the dump yesterday, or 2 days ago, where Citadel came out and said that they think the Fed is going to hike rates, the market had dumped quite violently. And we did essentially today recover that entire dump because that was not likely and it was just manipulation. Now, what we want to see is, number one, Bitcoin has reclaimed this support. This is a pretty bullish sign. And now Bitcoin is in this descending type of pattern. We want to see a break and hold above. This is 65,000 just about. A break and hold above $65,000 for Bitcoin. And I think Bitcoin would get a possible test of this 67K region. If Bitcoin comes up and tests this 67K region and there's big wicks across the board, lower highs, and it starts to break down here and find resistance, well then I think that this could potentially be a top. And heading into August is historically a very bearish month for Bitcoin. This could end up being a top where we can come back down and maybe come back to these lows somewhere in this region, or even sweep these lows by August or September. So that is something that we want to pay attention to. It's something that I'm going to be paying attention to. But I think with the Clarity Act, if it gets voted on and gets done next week, that could send us to breakout where we could pump to 72 to 75K. And at that level, what I will be personally looking for is just an opportunity to sell spot, to flip short and catch this next leg down, probably the final leg down, maybe September, October, somewhere in that region where there should be a final leg down, where that is going to be, according to the 4-year cycle, the most optimal buying opportunity. Now, is it possible that the low is in for Bitcoin? Yes, it's quite possible. It's quite possible that this low is never tested or touched ever again for at least quite some time. That is quite the possibility. But Bitcoin is ultimately down 50%. And this is, long-term speaking, this is an incredible buying opportunity here, even with altcoins, even though we might go a little bit lower, it's just not going to be significantly lower. And as you take a look, once Bitcoin kind of reaches that low here, yes, there was another final low, but it wasn't significantly lower. If you take a look here and you zoom in at that last bear market, it was a 12% move. So buying here, and we could potentially be here somewhere in this region, and there's that final pump, and then we had that final leg down, which that took place in November, so it might be near October. And then we bottomed and chopped around for quite some time before we broke out. And the breakout wasn't until after the first of the year. Not until January did we start to actually push up. So we might actually be quite bearish and choppy until the next year. But if the Clarity Act gets passed, this could certainly change the direction on things. So in the short term, I am looking for at least a move to 67K. I don't think they're going to leave these highs untouched if we do actually start to break down, because with these rising yields, with all of this fear and panic, stocks are correcting, and the market could start to price in rate hikes as early as September, which there is a possibility for it now. If you take a look, there's about a 57% chance, which is subject to change based on the data, that there's going to be a rate hike. A rate hike would certainly be bearish for cryptos and equities, and that is what the market will start to price in, and we could finally get that leg lower, that final leg down. And then if inflation keeps coming down lower, well, then they're going to start probably pricing in rate cuts, and that's going to bottom the market and send it up. But we have a lot of bullish catalysts here in the short term that I think is going to send cryptos much higher sooner. And this Clarity Act can cause Bitcoin to break out and give us that exit pump. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Make sure you are all subscribed with notifications on. If you got anything out of the video, please consider giving this video a thumbs up, and I will see you later.